Hello, denizens of the universe. I'm the Romance Scrooge, and these are my top 10 favorite episodes of OKKO Let's Be Heroes. Like any top 10 list, this is very subjective. These are ranked by how much I personally enjoyed a certain episode over anything else. For some context, I'm the kind of Star Trek fan that enjoys more dialogue and philosophy-heavy episodes, or really goofy love letter romps over big spaceship battles or anything particularly action-heavy. The same applies here, even with the goofy, over-the-top cartoon. That's a huge part of why I picked some of these. Number 10. Presenting Joe Kappa. Joe Kappa is a middle-aged flop of a comedian with a routine full of bad dad jokes and coffee puns. Joe is absolutely convinced that because his time in the limelight is over, that there's nowhere else he can go. He's all washed up. Rad and KO are determined to lift his spirits and help him rediscover his confidence, as well as a new lease on life. The eventual coffee-themed fight with Shannon is a hilarious cap-off to Joe's short but satisfying brush with a midlife crisis. I love that this is a goofy story about an older man that is just starting on an exciting new chapter of his life. There's too many older people that get stuck in the rut of my life is my job and become empty husks of their former selves after they retire and don't know what to do with themselves or their time without their former day job. Joe is a friendly reminder that an old dog can always learn new tricks, in the form of using his coffee in clever, creative ways that he hadn't tried before. Out of OKKO's long list of weird, wacky side characters, Joe is one of my personal favorites. I wanted more of him after this episode premiered, and I still want a Joe-centric series of webisodes or comics now, even if I have to make them myself and nobody reads them but me. Number 9. Your world is an illusion. I'm a sucker for thoughtful and clever takes on fourth wall breaks. This one gets extra points for setting up a parallel between KO's fourth wall break and someone getting a hit of existential dread from thoughts like, am I just someone's sim? And the extra layer of, can or do I exist after death? In KO's case, he decides to offset further nihilistic feelings and spirals by reaffirming how tangible and real his relationship with his mom and his friends are. As long as he values these people and his lived experiences with them, that's more than enough to give his life and reality value in turn. It's an especially insightful take, given how big the themes of friendship and found family are to this show as a whole. These are ideas I think about daily, to be honest. So anything that tackles something close to Hollow Jane pulling the proverbial rug out from under KO's feet is going to be a story that grabs my attention. Number 8. Bittersweet Rivals. After the buildup of Enid's history with Elodie, this is the turning point and beginning of repairing their broken friendship. The best scene, hands down, is Elodie swooping in to rescue Enid. A dramatic sunset scene that encapsulates a chain of Elodie choosing Enid over her need to win at everything. Elodie herself is a fantastic portrait of someone struggling between personal morals and societal pressures to appear as the prettiest, strongest, most popular, etc., no matter what the cost. She knows how intimate and strong her connection with Enid was, but she was also convinced that there was only one spot in the limelight. If she shared that spot, it would lessen the prestige of her position. It's artificial scarcity. Elodie was cornered by the capitalistic vision of competition, where others have to be pushed aside and stepped on, and there's only one clear-cut path or mold for the perfect hero. Bittersweet Rivals explores Elodie's side of her strained relationship with Enid. It also shows what kind of impact Enid has on her overall worldview, and that Elodie can and will choose her friend and the personal changes needed to include Enid in her life. This is one of several examples of why it's worth giving someone room to change if she shows the initiative and active desire to do so. Number 7. Back in Red Action. Red Action was my favorite character when I kept tabs on OKKO back in 2017 through 2019. Enid's crush on Red was obvious from Red's on-screen introduction. This episode reveals that the feelings are definitely mutual. Red is just as much of a wannabe cool kid and closeted dork as Enid is. When Enid learns about Red's Hugh Trooper past, it levels a proverbial playing field. These two can and should be more open and vulnerable around the other. They're cooler together, and are absolutely a power couple on the hero side of the plaza to rival Mr. Gar and Carol. Besides fantastic character building for Red, the entire episode is full of corny poses and fun references to the ridiculous transforming vehicles that litter Power Rangers and its Super Sentai source material. Granted, the Hue Troop is definitely more of an homage to Super Sentai. The 8-year-old me that always wanted a girl as a Red Power Ranger loves Red action. She's the obnoxious but charming punk ranger I didn't know I needed until I checked out OKKO. Number 6. Lad and Logic. As someone that's written a character analysis on Lord Boxman, I think this episode is core to any discussion about him as a character. I'm still fascinated by how much more open-minded, warm, and considerate Box Lad is when compared to present-day, stern, manipulative, and cruel Boxman can be, until a combination of his closer relationship with Professor Venomous and his redemption arc with his kids, not in regards to his overall alignment. At the very least, Boxman is an example of how a bright-eyed and hopeful person can lose themselves to an all-encompassing goal or obsession. Anyone could become a Boxman if they surrender to paranoia and get lost in their own head to the point that they refuse to listen to anyone else. Mr. Logic's story is roughly comparable to someone leaving an abusive relationship. Part of Boxman's deterioration is how someone can start a relationship with a kind, well-meaning person, and that image of how they used to be eclipses what problems pop up later after that person removes their mask. Or in Boxman's case, something happens that leads to them becoming a horrible partner. Mr. Logic was made for a specific purpose, but starts to discover who he wants to be after talking with Mr. Gar at the Work in Progress Plaza. Who Mr. Logic wants to be conflicts with what Boxman demands he should be. This is what leads to Boxman creating his kids with the sole intention of them conforming to the exact vision of who and what he wants them to be. Thankfully, he pulls back on this motivation and starts work on becoming a better parent later. When Mr. Logic stands up for himself and leaves Boxmore, it's the start of his own self-determination. He needed space and autonomy to become his true self. If you're interested in a more in-depth look at Boxman's character, I'll leave a link to my Boxman character analysis in the description below. Number 5. Boxman Crashes. I almost put Villain's Night Out in my top 10, but this episode has the penultimate Boxman scenes in it. Or more specifically, it has my favorite Boxman scene, where it looks like Venomous has a big, world-shattering epiphany about how to work through his ennui after he and Boxman attack the plaza. He's been so bored for so long, and now this weird cyborg man gave him the metaphorical missing piece to get his life that much closer to complete. Villain's Night Out has the magic carpet ride and the Venomous proposal scene, but Boxman Crashes shows the professor's side of the story. Viewers finally have insight as to what his personal life is like, and most importantly, what he thinks of Lord Boxman. Look, the Boxy Bunch found family dynamic is one of my favorite parts of this cartoon. I love that this episode gives me both perspectives of the relationship for my favorite gay mad scientists. I need both points of view for my bad fanfic writing needs. I also have a video about Boxman and Venomous in particular, and I'm also going to link some of that bad fanfiction. There isn't anything that's just Boxman-centric yet, but it's just a matter of time until there is. Number 4. The So-Batical. Setting up a villain plot of ruin kids' education by teaching them nothing but blindly memorizing facts is a stroke of genius. It's alarmingly accurate commentary on where American education is, and how the end result can be made to order zombies, corporate drones that don't fight back or ask questions. Besides Boxmore shenanigans, Miss Quantum paints a really sympathetic picture of teachers that honestly love their job and want to challenge students but are restricted by school boards, funding, and whatever else. I'm tempted to put a pin in further discussion on this one, considering how much stronger the commentary is now versus pre-pandemic conditions. In a nutshell, I love the social commentary here. Number 3. Second First Date. There are so few cartoons that let the male and female lead stay just friends. Rad and Enid are that much more interesting because they started out as a failed romance. Enid's first impression of Rad was that he is an insensitive macho meathead, and not much has changed. At surface level, Rad doubled down on the toxic machismo, and his more feminine interests or sensitive side are open secrets he refuses to acknowledge. This establishes that Rad will apologize and can have frank, honest conversations with people that are important to him. It also sets the stage for how Rad and Enid's friendship becomes more than co-workers and surface level from here. Manly Cupid is also a delight. He's an 80s brand of big, boxy, and rippling muscles and a bright pink toga. He's gruff, but he also embodies the importance of open communication and vulnerability between romantic partners. He's very forceful in his approach, but there's a promising note that he's open to learning from his own mistakes and admitting when he's wrong. He's a fantastic early example of positive masculinity in this series. Number 2, Special Delivery. The meat of this episode is addressing the sharper edges of how often Enid quips at Rad or makes fun of his softer interests. Rad still struggles with owning the more feminine side of his personality and interests, but he's reached a point with Enid where he feels like he should be comfortable enough to be his full, uncensored self. Where Second First Date focus more on Rad's defenses, Special Delivery is a companion episode where Rad calls out Enid using sarcasm and blurring the line between playful teasing with outright bullying as her own set of defense mechanisms. They're able to work things out with Enid addressing Rad's criticisms and promising to be more thoughtful and conscientious when Rad expresses genuine interest in something cringe. While Enid has a shared arc of being emotionally vulnerable is cool with Red action, Rad's more sensitive side complements and touches on what kind of self-awareness Enid would need otherwise. There's also KO, but he manages to knock down her walls in an easy, affable way unique to him as an adoptive younger brother. Rad is a harder nut to crack. Empathizing with him means looking past his more awkward exterior and takes a little more effort on Enid's part than with Red action or KO. Number 1, The Power Is Yours. This is my all-time favorite episode as well as crossover event, hands down. It single-handedly drummed up what interest I have in Captain Planet now, and led to me going out of my way to watch more of the original series. If OKKO comes up, I mention this episode at least once. Every time. And I was hell-bent on showing at least this one to my partner or anyone else that expresses even an iota of interest in this show. This episode lives in my head rent-free. This is a love letter to how campy, goofy, but heartbreakingly earnest Captain Planet was, as a warning about pollution, climate change, and other social issues. Dr. Blight is as over-the-top as she is in the original cartoon. Overall, it's a fun, ridiculous romp that showcases the strengths of OKKO's deceptively simplistic art style, combined with surreal, goofy imagery, only possible in an abstract cartoon world. The ending bit with Kwame and Captain Planet warning KO that climate change is an immediate and ongoing issue has the right amount of seriousness and gravity that message needs. There's so many episodes that I could similarly describe this way, but this one managed to grab my attention in a way that I can't fully articulate. I still feel robbed that there was going to be a Captain Planet crossover episode, another one that featured the whole crew. Not just Kwame, but he manages to get all of the Planeteers together. I still want that. And if there's an attempt to get OKKO back on the air or another round of it like 20 years from now, even if it's older KO, if there's an opening on that team, even if it's just for the Captain Planet episode, I'm here! Hire me, please! I want to work on that! I want to work on that episode! This is my current list as of late 2024. These may change as time goes on, and I write enough essays to flesh out a short novella. For now, this was me just taking a breather after the heavier video I worked on last week. I'll get back to writing character analyses, essays, and otherwise next week. Thanks for watching my video. If you're interested in following me on other social medias or whatever, I have the links to all those in the description below. I also have a Patreon. If you feel so inclined, it's appreciated but not required. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'm trying to get better at recording stuff off the cuff besides just reading from a script. So that's probably going to be a little bit awkward.